Yep, it's
Uh,
working.
okay, good. I should have started that 2 slides ago, but we didn't. So there you go. I at the end of this, I'll convert this and edit it or whatever. But anyway, it'll be available via a YouTube link, and so we'll make sure anybody that wants it can get access to it. But what I'd like to do when you're doing the video review of this, um, this is a familiar bit of text right here, and I what I did was I just read through this and I did it. I tried it 5 times and timed myself and did an average of the 5 tries, and that came out to 18.9 seconds to verbally or to verbalize this text. Now that was not including any kind of phonetics or anything that way. That was just trying to speak as clearly and slowly as I could as far as getting somebody to hear me on a radio. And then I turned around and I took this text and plugged it into a WinLink message. And from the point where I connected to the RMS until the whole session was done took 13.9 seconds. So, and then the recipient, of course, I sent it to myself and one of my email addresses. It was as error free as it was provided. So, if we imagine for a moment that, say, you're helping out a hospital that has lost communications for whatever reason, and they're running low on about 10 or 15 medications, and they need somebody to resupply, and it falls to you to do this communication. Are you going to be able to read that list of medications and phonetically, because you want it to be error free? My God, you don't want to make a mistake on medication. Um, or would you just take the electronic copy that you get from that hospital employee, plug it into a message, and send it? Seems like a no-brainer to me. So there's another plus for digital communications. But by all means, when you're reviewing this, go ahead and try this. Just read it, see how long it takes, and then later on, when you're doing digital communications, give it a try and see how long the same amount of text takes to send. And then I already touched on this, of course, error free. The noise or error is the main problem in a radio signal or a signal that disturbs the reliability of your communication system. So with digital, pretty much everything digital has the automatic repeat query, the ARQ, or some version of it built in. And so it ends up providing an almost error-free in most cases. I was messing with Bar AC earlier. Actually, it was yesterday. They put out a new version of it. I updated and tried it out. And I was just amazed that there's no extraneous characters. There's no noise on the screen. There's nothing. It's just pure clean text, keyboard to keyboard. And I had that chat with Roy Walker. So I was kind of surprised to see him on the first time I fired up this brand new version of RAC. But anyway, um, yeah, the automatic repeat query also happens in WinLink, and so if WinLink senses that it's getting a bad packet of data, it'll reject it and send this ARQ, and then the package gets resent. So what you end up with is as error free as it was sent. It may take forever. I mean, it depends on your signal propagation and so forth, but you'll get an error free message in the end. And I just did some. I was assuming maybe we would have some people that didn't know what some of this looked like, so I just did some quick screenshots. One from WinLink. This was I just did this yesterday, but I did a folder down here under personal folders, so you can make that and make whatever you want in there. And that's where I stored the folks that did check in via RFM during the exercise. As soon as I read them, I just moved them down to this folder so that way I could go back and for repeatability or whatever I could include them in after action reports and so forth. So that's just a quickie screenshot of WinLink. FLDigi, I'm not going to go through all of these, but right now. But here again, if you're reviewing via video, you can pause the video and look at these. These are the things that's available in FLDigi. It's built in. These are built-in modems, software modems into the FLDigi suite. And um, CW, of course, is pretty popular. The PSK down here and Olivia are both pretty popular. RTTY, actually, I've had several RTTY conversations now, and that's been around for what, 6 decades. So it's still people using it. I'm also in a net on Thursday and Friday nights. Thursday night especially, it's a 40 meter for the Hellschreiber, and that was developed in 1929. So that was a little bit before some of our folks call it internet radio. That was a little before internet. So um, yeah, those are some of the things that's available in FL Digi. There was a screenshot while I was getting ready to putting this stuff together. I just jumped on the radio and brought up PSK mode, and I did. I put out a CQ right away. I got this guy from Knoxville, Tennessee, came right back, and we had just a short convo. So I captured the screen before it disappeared. But here again, this will fill up with garbage because FL Digi or a lot of the older or other software will try to decode everything it thinks it hears. So there is a squelch function that you can use that'll cut down on the amount of noise. But if you get into something like Hellschreiber or even RTDY, if you have squelch set too high, you'll never decode a message. So it takes a little fussing with the settings, but you get there. And then the big one, the one that everybody raved about, this is a polarizing piece of software right here. You either you either love it or you hate it. There's a lot of FT8 or a lot of people that say the FT8 was it's the beginning of the end for amateur radio, and it's not real amateur radio, and there's just no way it just boggles the mind why anybody would do this. And then there's other folks such as myself that thinks it's a pretty cool program. You can get in and make some pretty fast contacts if you want to do a work all states or a DXCC, some kind of a word that way. This is about your quickest avenue to that end. It allows for some pretty quick communications. I mean, it qualifies in all the matters. You call out, you call CQ, somebody responds, you send them a signal report, they send one back to you, you say thanks 73, and they do the same, and that's it. You move on to the next conversation, and that all happens via computer. There's no keyboard in this. There's people that made fun of it, said, "Oh, you just turn it on, and let it go for a couple of days." Well, that's not how it works either. You have to actually put a little bit of brain power into it, not a lot, because I use it pretty easily. So obviously, it doesn't take a lot, but you do have to sort of pay attention. And then there's a FT4 that you really have to pay attention because it goes a lot faster. Same technique, but much faster. And then there was a quick screenshot that I did also. I think this was yesterday. WZ5 Alpha. I had a quick convo right there. I was calling CQ. He came back, said, "Hey, I'm over here in EM40." So we exchanged signal reports and 73s, and away we went. Actually, his 73 doesn't show up until later down there. I don't know what it rolled up with. So what we started out with in the late 80s, early 90s, it's going to look pretty similar, but we had computers, we had dumb terminals. I was trying to remember the terminals we used to use at work. I worked in a power plant for a lot of years, and we had a mainframe computer, and a lot of shops around the plant had terminals that access the mainframe. And so anyway, you'd have terminal or an underpowered computer or whatever, and then you would have this terminal node controller, the TNC, and it would be something that would have to be alternately powered and that kind of stuff. You'd have connections from your computer or terminal to the TNC, and then the TNC would take control of your radio via your push to talk, send audio signals, receive audio signals, and so forth. And so we went by. I mean, progress was rapid on this, but that's kind of where it started out, or where it started to get popular anyway. And more currently, and this isn't as current as it could be, but now instead of a TNC, we could still have a TNC sitting here, but it's really an interface. That's the gist of it. That interface might be built into the computer. That interface might be built into your radio, or it could still be some kind of external device that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But essentially, we still have your audio in and out. This is the part that's not necessarily up to date, the RS-232. If you have an older TNC or whatever, you can get RS-232 to USB adapters. But so this is pretty much standard. And then over here you got push to talk, your audio in and your audio out. That's how it's done. Any questions so far? Everybody's asleep. Okay, good. Uh, the modern radios, modern by that I mean within the last 3 to 5 years or so. Some of them a little bit longer. The manufacturers, Yaesu and ICOM especially, Kenwood was a little slow to the game, but they got there. Have built-in sound cards. They have that interfaces built in to the radio themselves. And we'll talk about my Kenwood here in a little bit. But so I got some of the more popular ones. Some of them you might see. I'd like to see these all sitting on my desk, but the only one I have is this one down here at the bottom. These all have built-in sound cards, and this is we're not going to go through step by step on how to do this, but just so you know, the ICOM 7300, I don't own one, but I have watched videos and things, and I believe the 7300 gets by with just this USB-A to USB Bravo cat cable, but there's an accessory socket here in case the sound needs to go in and out that way. FT991, I have an 891, and it's very, very similar to this. And I know that it takes two cables. You have to have a USB-A to plug into your computer, a USB Bravo to plug in here in the back of the 991. And then this one, I've seen it hooked up both ways. This is an FTDI adapter, RS-232 to USB, and it's got a chipset in it that fakes the computer into thinking that this is RS-232. Anyway, you can plug it in there, so you got cat control through your USB, and then your sound would go in and out through your RS-232. In some cases, it depends on your computer or what your driving unit would be. There's a different cable available. This is just a little 6-pin DIN that would plug in one end to your computer, and the other would plug in down here to your 6-pin DIN on the back of the 991. Just quickly, this is what I use for a portable, although I don't have the 450, that wouldn't be very portable. But a laptop, a SignalLink, and Brad's going to talk to you about SignalLinks here in a little bit. So you provide power to your radio, and your laptop, of course, got a battery in it. SignalLink, the USB version, like this one, gets its power from the laptop or computer. So put an antenna on this, power it up, and away you go. You got digital. And here's the one that I use. This is my Kenwood TS590SG. I use it for everything digital. It's been a wonderful radio. I really like it. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, and I'm okay with it. It's all right. But this is essentially the way it works. And even this is just a little bit out of date. This is showing an RS-232 to the computer. Mine's actually USB, goes to the computer. So I've got two cables, two USB cables that go to my computer. And then the other end's RS-232, and the actual cat control is through the USB Bravo port on the back of the radio. And like I said, with FL Digi, with WinLink, I haven't found a mode I can't run yet. This radio will not do 2 meters or 70 centimeters, so I can't do like the bar FM here in the valley. But anything else, digital modes, I haven't found one I can't run yet on this system. And just another quick one, another SignalLink, and this has got the an FTDI cable associated with it, and this is TS2000. I had one of these radios several years ago, and it's the same way. You got our cable comes in from your computer to the SignalLink, it goes out, connects over here. If you follow it around, it goes to this ACC2 port, and then this cable plugs into your computer also, and then the other end goes up to 232. So that's how that one. And for the first of these that we're going to, as far as external devices, I'm going to show you one. This is a DigiRig, and I've got one right here. This is how big it is. It's tiny. If we back up here real quick and look at this SignalLink, you can see on the SignalLink, you've got a power button, you've got a green light, a red light for when you're transmitting. You've got a controls for transmitting and receive audio. And then if you're doing something like running power, or you got some kind of tuner or whatever that needs to operate before your signal starts, there's a little delay on there. You can tweak the delay, and so it doesn't start sending a signal until the delay times out. But with the DigiRig, all of that's gone. There's a simple USB-C that goes in one side, and that's just a typical uh, plugs into the computer, and that USB-C plugs into the DigiRig. And then it has I've got two sets of cables. These will do Kenwood or Baofeng or Waxon, however you say it. And then this set of cables works with my Yaesu FT8. So they just plug into the DigiRig, plug into the radio. The other cable plugs into the computer, and away you go. These are about $50, and Brad has put a PDF on the IO reflector for D21, and if you don't have access to that, let us know, and we'll see that you get a list of links where you can go to buy this stuff. So, or learn more about it. We put quite a few links together for this to cover this. So, anyway, that's what I know about DigiRig. And there's some that Brad knows more about than I do.
Yeah, this is Kevin Custer's product. He calls himself Masters Communications. And I believe they started out just being available in kit form. You see on the PC board, basically it's a self-contained interface. And they come in several models, all the way from the DRA30 through the DRA100. I didn't know a thing about them until I moved into the Valley and I got interested in Vera. And I have to take a little bit of a trip back to SignalLink again, because I have a SignalLink. I've had a SignalLink USB for years and used it quite successfully in the sound card modes that I use, which was fine with the WJST stuff and radio teletype and all of those. But when it came to Vera, it wasn't capable of handling the high-speed Vera FM. There's an old version of the SignalLink, and there's a newer version of the SignalLink. Mine was the older. The newer version of the SignalLink will handle the Vera FM wideband or high-speed stuff, but the Masters Communication stuff does it right out of the box. So I bought one of those, and that's what I use on Vera FM. I am delighted with it. Now, mine came fully assembled, and it was well worth, I think it was like $115. As you can probably tell, Kevin prints those cases. So they're nothing fancy, but the interfaces work quite well. Mine has the Vox included in it. So basically, you got a USB cable that plugs into your computer, like all the rest of these do, and then you've got a cable that plugs into your rig. The output on mine, incidentally, from my Masters Communication board, is a DB9 connector, which you might recognize as looking a lot like an RS-232 connector, 9-pin. And that feeds my dedicated 2-meter Vera rig, which is one of the Elenco transceivers, which ironically also uses a 9-pin connector. So it's pretty easy to wire up. All of the links in the Valley that are part of the Starlink system are using these DRA boards, and they're just stellar. And basically, we'll talk more about those. Yeah, there you go. There's the DRA65. That's the board I have, and it's in the blue box you just saw. This one has the built-in box. Now you can force the software you're using to use an RS-232 command to key your rig if you like. It's a lot simpler if you do it this way. The board senses audio, and I think there's a relay, or it could be a transistor switch that puts the rig into transmit mode. So far, I have nothing but good things to say about the DRAs and the Masters Communication stuff. No, I don't work for them. Here's his latest and greatest, the DRA100 series. He calls this his May Plus Ultra, and it comes in a fancy aluminum box, and it's a lot prettier. Also, interestingly, one of the other things Kevin is doing for those folks who have the older SignalLinks and don't want to go through the trouble of starting completely over again, Kevin offers a PC board that can be basically transplanted into the box that your signal link was in. So you can put a master's communications board, which is fully capable to do anything that's out there today, in a signal link box, and continue to use the same cables that you use with your signal link, which I think is a neat idea. Again, there's a PDF document that's available that gives URLs, links, so you can go back and read about this stuff and decide if you're interested in any of it, all of it, or none of it. Here's a list of Kevin's products right now. You notice down close to the bottom there, it says DRA-SR. That's the Signal Link upgrade board. And you can retrofit your Signal Link USB to have DRA functionality. And you can see that the prices range from pretty low, $35 for a kit without a case, to $170 for the upper model. So it's good stuff. I will vouch for that. And here we are with Signal Links. Signal Link came along at a time when they and the outfit out of Green Mountain, New Hampshire. Pardon me?
Is that West Mountain?
Yes, West Mountain Radio. Thank you. Had a senior moment there. West Mountain Radio had come along, and I used their products for a while too. That's when we used the sound cards in the computers. You still needed some way to link your audio to the rig, and that's where West Mountain Radio came from. They produced their products. Well, Signal Link came along and did them one better. They actually put the sound card in the box and called it a Signal Link USB. And they worked really great until technology and the demands of audio came along. Now, if you've never used a Signal Link, they require a jumper board. And if you look at the bottom of that screen, the second window from the left, you see that little, looks like an IC. I call those personality modules. I think Signal Link calls them something else. But that determines, and you have to either wire yours, or you can buy one from them that will mate their product to your radio. But that determines what signals go on what pins on the output cable to that thing. So that's an internal change. You have to actually get out an Allen wrench and take the Signal Link apart if you want to change rigs with your Signal Link, which that's kind of problematic for me. But anyway, that's the way they work. Incidentally, Kevin Custer with the DRA boards has got units on the market that accept those personality modules and also accept the same cables that you use with your Signal Link. So interesting the way things work. Problem with the Signal Link, the original version, was that the transformers on their output, the audio transformers, were not capable of passing the wide bandwidth necessary to run high-speed VARA FM. So Signal Link came up with a newer version. So I think we've got slides of that, don't we? We have the old and the new.
I believe so. Yep.
Yeah. Here's the original Signal Link board. Notice that those little brown audio transformers at the bottom. That's what identifies this as an old one. And personality module I was telling you about plugs into that IC header just above those right there. And if you'll show me the next one, there you go. There's the new Signal Link board. Notice the black transformers at the bottom. That Signal Link will, in fact, work with the higher speed VARA, both on HF and on FM. I have one of each. My newer one is here, and the old one I took up to my daughter's house, and I use that during the summer months when I'm fiddling around with radio and contest and such. That's about all I can say about Signal Links. If you've got one, they certainly are usable. Unfortunately, you cannot update an old Signal Link to a newer Signal Link board. You can't even send it back to them and ask them to do that. You just got to start all over again. Wayne commented on this earlier about making basically this is a level converter, USB level to RS-232 levels. USB is plus minus 5 volts, and RS-232 is pretty much plus minus 9 volts. FTDI is the manufacturer of a chip that does the level conversions, and they seem to be pretty much the gold standards in USB to RS-232 adapters. And the drivers generally do work with almost any version of Windows I've ever run across. Now, are there some Chinese knockoffs of these that may or may not work with a particular application you have? So If you get one that you know for sure is a verified FTDI adapter, you're pretty much in good shape. Wayne found this one on the lower left, which I thought was most interesting. I've never seen that one before. It's got a DB25 on one end and a DB9 on the other side, so you can go either way. I do it the old-fashioned way. I have a drawer full of 9 to 25 adapters. So, but either way, whatever floats your boat. If you need to make RS-232 out of USB, it's possible to do it that way. Or what I did in my desktop PC out in the shack, I bought a card that breaks out into 4 real live RS-232 ports, so that works too. Yes, one of my favorites. Got to remember that this stuff predates the internet, okay? Including this PK232, and it's Ken. PK232, if you're not familiar with these, it was a TNC produced by Advanced Electronic Applications, AEA. And this thing did CW, it did radio teletype, weather fax, and packet. It had 2 packet channels. You notice on the front panel, a couple of gray switches. It says radio 1, radio 2. You could do one radio or the other. You could not do both at the same time. And these worked fabulously for both radio teletype and packet radio. That's what a lot of us used when we got started. Interestingly, WinLink Express still supports these for generation, transmission, and reception of packet. In fact, I've got 2 of these on my shelf, and if I need to operate packet radio, AX25 1200 baud, I've got the rig set up for it, and this is what I use. So if you happen to run across one of these, they're available usually for cheap, unless somebody thinks blue is an extra pretty color and charges extra for that. You get them anywhere from 25 to 50 bucks. It's RS-232. The one caveat about this, if you notice on the backplane image where it says radio 1 and radio 2, those are unique connectors. It requires a 5-pin female connector, and they're kind of hard to come by. So if you do find somebody that's got one, make sure that they have the original cable or something that can be plugged into that. I'm sure that with a little work and some solder and some ribbon cable, you can cobble something together, but it's a whole lot easier to just plug it in and unplug it. Now, having said that, this is not the only TNC that's capable of running packet radio. There were lots of brands around. I believe about the only other older model TNC that's still recognized by WinLink are these Tapper TNC clones. This one's called an MFJ 1270. And this is the Charlie model. I also came out in, I believe it was an A, Alpha, Bravo. This one is one of the later ones. So these will still work too. Most any TNC that has a KISS mode will work. If you have a CAM, a Cantronics CAM, or a CAM XL, they will not work with WinLink Express. I don't know why. Next time I talk to Phil Sheridan, who's the guy that wrote WinLink, I'll ask him. Because I do have a CAM, and I did have a CAM XL, and I could never make them work with WinLink Express. And we do have a fairly well-provisioned packet network down here, don't we, Steve? It's not being used as much as probably it was at one time, but we've got digipeaters.
Yep. It's been pretty quiet, and I think the cams, it's because of the firmware version. If it's under 6, it's not compatible with the B2F firmware that they use for packet.
Yeah, well, it had been above 6 because my cam had got 6 point something in it, and it still wouldn't ring. But anyway, yeah, it's a pain in the butt. But if you're in dire straits and you need to get a message out, these will work. Don't discount packet just because it's older technology. If the internet goes down, if the internet goes down, we'll use whatever we can to get on the air and get the messages out. And one of the things I wanted to say, in addition to what Wayne had to say about why to go digital, we're in the business of supporting basically government agencies in RACES. Now, in areas that may not be necessarily true, it may be NGOs as well. All of the people who are working in the professionals and the professional volunteers, if you will, are used to dealing with email messages. And if you can hand them an email message, even when the internet is out, they consider that to be extremely valuable. I sold that to the state of Illinois and showed them how that could supplant the internet if it went down. And they were just amazed that there was an alternative to that. Wayne will probably comment on this later, but one of the things WinLink will do, it's set up to recognize Iridium smartphones and to be able to send email that way. Okay, I'm off my soapbox, Wayne.
Well, thank you, Brad. Saved my voice and I learned some things, so that's good. Win-win. The while we're talking about packet, there's a way to avoid buying a external device, and I use this one actually quite a bit, or I have in the past. This UZ7HO sound modem. This is basically a freebie. I mean, the guy will accept donations, of course, if you use the software, but it's free to download and install on your. It'll work with Windows XP, Vista 7, 8, 10. I've heard that it will also work with 11, but I've not seen verification of that. And I believe that under the new revision of Wine on Linux, on Debian Linux, was it 1.7? I think it is now, or something like that. That you can run it on Linux as well, but it's a Windows device or a Windows directed software. But it does an excellent job of running packet, 1200 baud. But you can see with for FSK, BPSK, the quadrature, QPSK, and that kind of stuff, you can get up there up to 4800 baud on packet. So that's moving along pretty good. You're not gonna beat Vera FM necessarily, but you're moving some data there, and you're staying legal. So yeah, and like I said, I run it on 2 different machines. I have an old, like a nearly antique Windows. When I got it, it had Windows XP on it. I've got Windows 10 on it now, but it's a 64-bit processor, but it only runs 32-bit operating system. So it is Windows, and this runs fine. It works great. And I can send that out to. I started out with Baofeng, and that worked okay. And then I moved over to a Waxon, however you say them, which is essentially a fancier Baofeng. But anyway, it also works just wonderfully. So, and like Brad said, we don't have, and Steve, we don't have a lot of packet going on here in the valley, but I still have access to it over here in McAllen on top of the one on top of the hospital is the closest one to me, and I don't have any trouble hitting that at all. So I've used it quite a bit. It's a little bit different looking window, but it's got a nice waterfall on it. You can see the data moving through there. But there's a website listed here, and it's also listed in the PDF that we've got available that covers. It's got all of the links associated with this, so it is in there. And then another one I want to talk about, if you really want to get in inexpensively, Sabrent makes, well, there's several manufacturers for this. I like Sabrent. I've used a lot of their hard drives, their hard drive cases, and that kind of stuff. But this is again pretty tiny, and all it is USB-A on one end and your microphone and speaker, microphone in and speaker out on the other end. So you can hook this on your laptop or your computer and do your adjustment of signals, the levels in your computer, and in like on my Alinco, I can set it up. It's just a plain Jane DXSR8 Alinco, and it has no bells or whistles on it. So with that, all I do is just run a speaker cord out of here to the computer and use the volume control on the radio for the sound coming into the computer, and then going out, I can get in the computer and set the amount of volume going out on speaker output, and it works. I mean, it's not super fast or anything like that, but in a pinch, you can get signals. You can hook your computer to your radio and make it talk. So, and it's $9. I mean, you could pick it up locally with tax and stuff for about between $9 and $10, and if you shop around a little bit, like Amazon Prime Day right now, you could probably get it for $4 or $5. I don't know, but But here we mentioned this earlier on the FTDI. Make sure it's Sabrent is sort of a brand name. Make sure if you go on eBay or something and you go, wow, that one's really cheap, but I never heard of that brand before. You might want to shy away from that anyway, because you're going to end up with a Chinese something that's not going to work for you. You're not going to be happy with it. So you might want to try to stick with the brand names, but in this case, a brand name is $10, so for $9. So it's worth the effort, and it's a way to experiment with it. If nothing else, you can have fun for an afternoon trying to make it work, and say a few cuss words and maybe get it work, maybe not. It's a hobby, right? It's a hobby.
Let me run a parallel of that for you before you get into your favorite modem. Can you see this thing? This is one of those 2 terabyte, $14 USB thumb drives. 2 terabytes. Also Chinese. In actuality, it's a 32 gig, or maybe 16 gig. I never did actually figure it out. But when you plug it into your computer, it says, hey, I'm 2 terabytes. And you try to write to it. It's kind of like the knockoff stuff.
Yeah. I got some 16 gigabyte thumb drives that every one of them, well, all but one has failed now. So I don't have really anything important on those. But I went back and bought some SanDisk thumb drives, and they're pretty decent. So brand names aren't what they used to be, but they're still brand names. So we'll
That's true.
those. And then I got one that I sort of make fun of, and I guess I shouldn't probably. The Pactor modem, it is the best you can get. I mean, it's absolutely. I'm not going to make fun of the build quality or anything like that. Made in Germany. The down here on the lower right hand the screen, the P4 Dragon, the DR7800, it is capable of speeds that's not legal in the U.S. So I'm not sure why anybody would go out and spend $2,000 on something you can't really use, but people do it. And then the low end of that, of course, is their PTC3 USB. That's a 1071, and it's just a little over $1,250. So I don't know how many of these. Maybe I could get us a deal if we all go in together and buy a dozen of these or something. I don't know, but that's the level that I poke fun at them because of the price and being it's made in Germany. As far as I know, this Farallon Electronics in San Rafael, California, is the only place where you can buy them in the U.S. And they're, like I said, they're top of the line. They're going to move some data. I mean, you're talking about 10,500 bits per second, and that's only over a 2,400 hertz bandwidth. So they can flat move some data. I mean, these would be great. If I was going to sea, I would want my boat to have one of these modems on there because at sea, I've not been there a lot. I'm not a Navy person, but I've been there enough to know that sometimes, just like on land, propagation's good and sometimes not so good. So when it's good, you want to make hay while the sun shines and get your information sent off and then receive any messages you got coming in. If you're getting weather data or something like that, you need it just as quick as you can get it. Before you lose the signal again. So, yeah, they're excellent modems, but it just makes me laugh at the price because it's so far out of my range that I wouldn't even pay that much for a radio, let alone a modem for a radio. So it's just how I am. I'm kind of cheap. Well, that's not bad. We did that in 56 minutes. So
Right on schedule.
That worked pretty good. And here again, if you're watching the video, you can pause the video and write all this information down because this is the most critical part, especially that first one up there. If you have any questions, get